So from Been There, Got Out. And tonight's guest is someone that I met live like a few weeks ago. And I immediately knew that I had to have her on to do an interview because she talks even more than I do. And she's got so much information and is passionate about her job. And there she is. Let me get her on here. So luckily we live well, she lives in another state, but we both were able to attend an event in New York City, and that's how we met. When was it? It was like a month ago, 2 months ago.
I feel like the summer has I don't even know, flown by. Maybe it was like 2 months ago,
Yeah,
maybe July, maybe
I don't
June.
know. It was
I
hot.
don't know. It was hot. It was very hot.
Yeah, but it was fun. So thank you and welcome. Thanks for coming on and tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Sure, of course. Thank you for having me. I am a matrimonial family law attorney. I've had a pretty long journey, all in family law. I started out working with a solo practitioner, and then I left there and went to legal aid. So I did some public defending for a while, and then I became a court attorney. And for those that don't know what a court attorney is, you pretty much work hand in hand with the judge. I did that for some years, and then I went into private practice. Did that for some years, and then I opened my own practice, and I am here now.
Yes. And so with the court attorney, you had mentioned that that really impacted what you did. Can you talk a little more in detail about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So most litigators or most attorneys, they don't really get the chance to experience what it's like on the other side of the bench. So pretty much as a court attorney, I see the cases first before they go to the judge. So I conference the cases, I speak with attorneys. I also have to do legal research, help with writing decisions. It's pretty impactful. So that's where I kind of get that mediation background from, because the judges are neutral. So when you conference cases, you have to remain neutral, and you see families in a different light. There's no litigation on my end. It's pretty much just helping the judge reach their decision.
And you said that one of the things you noticed is that minorities are really affected differently by the legal system. So let's get into detail about that.
Oh, absolutely. I know we spoke about that quite a bit, and I think it was during the pandemic, so about 3 years ago. It was just insane. The chief judge then, DeFiore, appointed a special advisor, Jay Johnson, and he did this amazing, like 100-page report of the inequalities of the justice system. And the biggest issue was the lack of diversity, right? So New York City, millions of people, and our benches didn't reflect the families that we served, right? From the judges to the court attorneys to the court staff, the attorneys that were appointed to cases. And there's a huge disparity in that. And I don't think a lot of families understand that. And the more you understand and can really appreciate that, you will realize a lot of these decisions and the delay and the lack thereof stems from the lack of diversity. And I saw that a lot as a court attorney. And I was actually in Nassau County for those years I was a court attorney, and there's a disparity. And I think that we can do better. We're supposed to do better. We will do better. But without that component of court, a lot of families suffer, right? Because they don't have anyone to identify with, and who can identify with them.
Were there certain things that you saw happen over and over with minority families in general? Like certain things that you saw like really different? Can you get into a little detail?
Yeah, as much as possible. But the biggest issue is, you know, I would say this culturally, right? Um, New York City in of itself, huge melting pot. We have families that, I mean, they come from all over the world, right? It doesn't mean that just because you're not from here, you're not going to engage in family court, right? So the lack of translators that we have in the court system, that's a huge issue, right? Sometimes the courts will use like a language line, but imagine there are like four people at a table and you're trying to use that language line to interpret. Like it was just a lot. And it's kind of sad to watch, but it was also refreshing sometimes when I had litigants come in and they look like me, right? And my family's from the Caribbean, so I can identify with that. And I feel like it gives people hope, right? Like they walk into a courtroom and they see people that look like them and they're not pushed to the side. Or, if maybe you don't speak English and you didn't know your case was called, so you sit there for an entire day and you didn't realize that your call was at 10 and not 11. Like little things like that, it really it changes how families view our court system. And without that, that extra push and that assistance there to help families, their experience is tainted, right? So when they think of family court, they don't think of, hey, I'm going to court to help my family. They think of it as like a dreadful place. So when they get there, they respond that way, right? They're less likely to be calm or less likely to want to engage and settle. They're angry, they're upset because there are no resources, right? Like simple things. You should always have an interpreter on hand, and you shouldn't have to wait 30 minutes, and you shouldn't get called back after lunch because the court the calendar was too busy in the morning. People take off an entire day of work and they sit there for hours, and by the time their case is called, they're pissed, right? And then something as small as, we don't have an interpreter that speaks your language, so you have to come back in 2 weeks. Like that's a deterrent. So that's some of the things that unfortunately we have to work on in the court system when families come.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, our audience deals with domestic violence, so add that on top. And I'm thinking how hard it is to contain your emotions in court and how it can negatively affect you. And so to have that on top of this, on top of everything else, it just probably makes things so much harder. And people feel like this is making things worse.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in virtual land still, kind of, sort of. However, imagine, a person who is a survivor of DV and you have to be in the same courtroom with your abuser, right? And I mean, these courtrooms aren't huge in family court. Like if we're focusing on that court, we're feet away, and sometimes what will happen is we'll try to separate the families. Like when I was a court attorney, what we would do is we'll let the officer know, and we would move one parent to one side, and then maybe the other parent would stay on the other side until the case was called. But that helps, but then it doesn't, right? Like you're still there.
Mhm.
And we all know DV, domestic violence, comes in so many different forms. It doesn't take much. You don't have to physically hurt someone to, be abused. And that's the thing. Like it's so much that goes on with that. So now with virtual court, it kind of helps, but then it doesn't, right? Because you still have to see one another. So there have been strides to fix that issue and to understand that, you know, there these issues exist, and how can we help families manage that and still be able to use our court systems like everyone else and navigate the court systems and still make a special place for them. And I think they have like rooms now, if I'm not mistaken, where if you are a survivor of DV, you can take the call or you can appear virtually or remote rather without having to physically be in a courtroom with the abuser. So that's one thing that the courts have tried to do.
Yeah, and that was a very nice segue into our topic, our main topic too, which has to do with managing expectations and managing expectations with your own attorney, because as we both know, people have certain ideas of what things are supposed to be
Yeah.
and then what it actually is. So, one of the things that you and I talked about was not just emotion in the courtroom, but you as an attorney being emotionally invested in the case. Why would be your people often say lawyers don't care, my lawyer doesn't care. Why, if you were emotionally invested, if I were your client, if you were emotionally invested in my case, why would that make you not a great attorney for me?
Um, so two things. So there are attorneys who just don't care. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the majority of attorneys do. But the problem is when clients come to me, they they are an emotional wreck. Like, I mean, a divorce, custody, child support, anything having to do with your personal life, especially children. I mean, your head is spinning, You know, imagine you walk in and you're like, you know, my husband of 20 years just served me with court papers to get a divorce. Like, that's really hard, right? So we meet clients where they are, and I always do. And if I invest my emotions into my case, then I can't do what you're paying me to do, right? I have to stay clear, tunnel vision. When I deviate from that, oftentimes your argument, you know, my client's argument will get lost, right? Because I'm just shooting things out. And that's how my client gives me information. So when I get that information in that manner, I expect my client to give it to me that way, right? Like, you're coming to me to solve a problem. It's time for me to solve the problem. You have to let me digest it and give it back out to the court in a way where my emotions are not tied to your case. Because if I argue with my emotions, the court becomes very distracted, right? And then when the court becomes distracted, the the judge doesn't really know what to do with your case, your family, right? The judge is kind of like, well, what are we really discussing here? Are you upset about this, or are you upset about that? Like, what decision am I supposed to make? And I've heard judges say that, right? Like, I mean, counsel, like, what are we arguing here, right? First you tell me this, and then you tell me that. It's because the attorney is giving the information the same way the client is, because the client is emotional, and I want you to live in that emotion, but I have to do my job as a lawyer. So I don't argue with my emotions. I just don't think that's really what you want me to do. Like, it feels good in a moment, but it's not going to be effective for your case.
Yeah, I know you had said that you pay me to be rational.
Absolutely.
And what you've described, it's like you have to be a filter. So you take in
Absolutely.
all the emotion, you get it, and then you translate it. We always say your lawyer's job is to translate your situation into a case or the law.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to know the law. I spent a lot of money to learn the law, and I still do spend a lot of money to stay current on the law. And it's not just the law. You know, I go above and beyond the next step, right? I speak to mental health specialists, attorneys for the children. I network with judges and referees and magistrates. I want to know every angle, right? Because that helps me do my job so much easier, right? So when I say to you, I can't argue that, it's not that I'm dismissing your feelings, right? Right? Like, it's not that. It's that I want you to get what you believe is best for your child. And in order for me to get that for you, you have to let me do my job, right? This is a very intimate relationship between client and attorney. And that's why I like to meet my clients before I agree to take on their cases. So they have an understanding of who I am, my role in the court system, and what I can do for them, and manage that expectation and build that trust, because that's a huge trust line between attorney and client. So you have to trust me that I'm going to get this done to the best of my ability.
Yeah, so we had talked about expectations not being managed, and you basically screen your clients. We do the same. So what kind of person do you think you'd say this is not the best fit?
Ooh. So for me, if I meet a client and, like, when we do the consultation, so everyone walks in the same way, right? They're pissed, they're upset, and the other parent is the worst parent in the world. Like, I expect that much, right? Like, I want you to get it out, tell me how you feel, you know. And then I start to ask certain questions, right, to kind of gauge if I can take on your case. So first things first, I do want to know your expectations. Like, what are you expecting to get out of this case? Like, what do you believe is supposed to happen in court? Because, you know, I don't expect that you're going to know the court system, so you tell me. And then I want to know about what the other parent would say about you, right? So if I'm doing this meeting with a potential client, you know, you told me all these things about the other parent, but if I ask the other parent, what would the other parent say about you? And that answer makes a world of a difference, because we're really quick to, you know, look outward and not inward. And sometimes that gives me the idea of how bad do you want peace, right? What are we actually doing here? Are you gearing up for war, and you just have to get that other person back? Like, you want me to avenge you? If that's the case, then I can't take on your matter, because I can never do that. I don't have that type of control, right? And neither does the court. And that's a big factor that, people don't realize, is that we can't really control what the other person does to a certain extent. So if you can't look past the fact that we have to set a goal, then it becomes very hard to manage that client. They start to sway a lot. They don't listen as much. They attack the other parent in text messages and emails on social media. They start to kind of manipulate the child. So now you become that other parent that you just walked into my office and told me about. And I lose that, that relationship with that client. And so far, so good, knock on wood, I've been pretty good at managing those clients and getting those clients in because, as angry as they are when they come through the door, when we walk away from the case, every client says, this could have went really bad for real, like really, really bad. And I thank you for keeping me on track. Like you kept bringing me back. I just keep bringing you back. All right, remember, you told me that you didn't want to do this. I'm telling you, this is a bad idea. So those are the clients I take, and I won't take the ones that just can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah. So one of the lines we had talked about that you like to say is, what you want, I can't do. So for example, if I come in and I say, Asia, you ask me what my goal is, and I say, I want the judge to hear me, and I want them to punish my ex because I've been wronged.
No, can't do that. That's not how that works. And it's like, it, it's a natural feeling, right? If someone does something to you that you don't like and you're upset, of course you want to feel like you got them back. You stuck it to them, right? But that's just not how that works, right? I can't do that. And the judge is not going to do that. That's not what the law says. There's no statute that I can cite while I'm giving my oral argument to the court. And according to section so and so and so, you have to punish him right now in the way that my client wants you to punish him. Absolutely not. That's not how that works. And a lot of parents want it to work that way, but it just can't. So what I do is I explain to you the law, right? Like I'm going to tell you what the law says, and I'm going to break it down in a way that is not going above your head. Like no one wants to go through that, right? Like we can have a conversation, and then I'm going to explain to you that I can't do that, right? Like I just can't. As much as I wish I could for you, I just can't. It's not ethical. In addition to that, I'm not capable, and the court won't let us do it either. So most people get it. After you tell them a few times, they understand.
I know, but it's a hard acceptance, right? Because people
Yeah.
think I'm going for justice. This is
Ju-
the kind of justice I want.
yeah. Justice is weird, right? Like that's a really weird thing. See, the court is not for parents, right? Like, so just an unpopular opinion, the court is not for you, right? The court is for the kids, right? Like, it's like if you train your mind to understand, the court is there to do what's best for the children. Like we have a standard. It's called the best interest standard, right? Like it's about the children, nothing about adults. Because if we had court for adults, then guess what? This would just be mayhem, right? It would be based off of emotions. So what the court will do is look at what is best for the child, right? Moving mom, dad, their feelings aside. If the child could speak for themselves, what would they say, right? Because, there's steps, like due process has steps. And sometimes, if your case is really that bad, you end up in trial, which is purgatory. Then the child may get to come into court and speak to the judge. And this little innocent little creatures get to come into this big, bad, scary place that their parents hate going. But for some reason, we want them to come there too, to go there too. So they go in and they tell the courts what they want, but that's after their parents spent months and years bashing one another.
And
Then they
money.
come in. Oh, forget about it. Lots of money. Just you know, going at it with one another. And then they come in and they say, Judge, I really want to be with my dad. Although mom and dad spent $100,000 arguing against one another, the kid really walks in and says, hey, listen, I kind of love both parents and I don't like when my parents fight. So the court is going to do what's best for the child. They don't care that you hate dad. They don't care that you hate mom. If the child is happy, the child is thriving, the child is doing well, and the child is of a certain age, the court will listen. So that goes out the window for what you want because it's not really about you. It's for the child.
Yeah, yeah. Now, so you're mentioning a lot with court if it does go to trial, but one of your big goals is for families to settle out of court. Why?
Oh, we don't even have the time. So, litigation is awful.
Isn't litigation sexy though?
It is. Everyone loves litigation. They love the word litigation. I'm gonna take you to court. I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna call my attorney. I'm take like no, 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 no. So the thing about litigation is really tricky, right? You really don't know the outcome. I never make guarantees to any of my clients. Man, I mean, I could argue with my eyes closed. I'm a recovering litigator at this point, but I 1000% know that it really depends, right? So you walk into court, and day one, you're expecting to be heard, right? You want the court to hear everything you have to say. Then after that, you want the court to make a decision right away. That never happens. Ever, 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 right? I have cases that sit for 2, 3 years. That's not because we don't know what we're doing, it's because there are hundreds of families that, come into court every day. So they litigate and they leave the stranger who's well equipped to make decisions, a judge, to make a decision about their child, who they would probably meet for 10 minutes. And I think it's sad. I have children, and I feel like I would be best to make the decision, and I would want to speak to the other parent to have a conversation about a decision for our children. And when that breaks down, there are resources, right, to help families have this conversation. Mediation, you can have a family therapist, a mental health specialist. There are too many other options than litigation. Um, and lastly, one of the things I tell my clients, like, listen, I try to settle. Trust me, settlement is better. No, you want to settle. You want to settle because you want everything that you want to, well, most of everything that you want, because you don't get everything you want, to be in this order. And when you hire me to litigate, it's my job to tear that other parent down as a litigator. And you may think you want that, you don't. I've heard horrible things said at court. And you have to live with this parent for the rest of your life. I don't. I get to walk away. I go home. I go to my family. I never have to see you guys again. But you just paid me to tell your kid's dad or mother, and reveal their darkest secrets, the most embarrassing things that, maybe when you were married, that was sacred between you two, but now that you're in court, now it's all bets are off. I once heard a litigator in the middle of a trial question the mother and bring up the fact that she had an abortion, had nothing to do with the case. It was mortifying. She was like hysterical. And I just looked at the attorney and like, why? Why was that so important for you to do that to this woman on the stand? It's because they're litigators, right? That's what we do. And after seeing that and doing that for a while, I don't believe in it. I think it's the worst thing families can sign up for. The day they walk into court and they tell the court they want a trial, because what you think is going to happen is the complete opposite.
Yeah, and another thing I'm thinking on top of all that emotional stuff and the humiliation and re-traumatizing that goes on in a courtroom, the orders that we see that come from a judge regarding a parenting plan are so bad compared to parenting plans that people come up with themselves because the judge doesn't know your family. Like
Yep.
when you can work on a parenting, like we see something that's like 2 or 3 pages, and the parenting plans that we do are like 17 pages because there's details like traditions that matter in your family, stuff about technology, stuff regarding legal decision making, details, not just like every other year for this holiday with no specificity. And that's the kind of thing that ends up that makes families go back to court again and again because they get these terrible orders that judges don't have the time to get into all of the things that matter to you. And it is really hard to mediate with difficult people. But we like to remind people too, it doesn't happen during one session usually.
No,
It's a process.
no. It's a combination. So I can, in true form and fashion, I can argue both sides.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both, right? It works both ways. So you walk into court, you get an order, and there's a such thing as just like a template, like boilerplate language, right? Like you get straight to the point every other weekend, maybe a dinner visit, share the holidays, like 1, 2, 3, we're done, right? Sometimes if you counsel your clients well enough, they will understand, right? We are giving you the bare minimum so you can go forward and, you know, create what works best for your family. Sometimes when you try to incorporate every single aspect of your life and try to predict what's going to happen in 10 years, depending on the age of the child, it's actually worse because I don't know what's going to happen with this child who's now 2 when he becomes 12. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be into sports. Maybe his team is in another state. You know, there's so many things that can happen. So I liked how my judge, when I was a court attorney, kind of laid it out, right? And she was super transparent and she made it work. She would say to litigants, I don't know your kid. I don't care about your kid. It's not my kid. And it's the truth. And parents need to understand this. This is your child, right? Why am I responsible for telling you where your child will be in 4 years? Like, that's your decision. Parents have to take the onus over that, right? And also, no one's realistic. The words, no one's realistic. If a parent works from 9 to 5, right? Please do not fight to have pickups at 3. You do not get off of work on time. You don't, right? So that's the most frustrating thing about orders is that if you give parents too much, then they go and they grab the paper. Wait, let me go to provision 36, and it's just like you can't live like that. You have to co-parent. That's really what's missed in all of this is that if you have a really long order, you have like this default, but it never teaches you how to co-parent. So you never know what to do when change comes up besides run back to court. And I keep telling parents, stay out of court. You don't have to go back to court. When you get the order and change happens, go to a mediator, go to a parent coordinator if you can't reach a decision. Stop going back to court because this change is not unanticipated, right? We know children will get bigger, they get older, they cost more money, right? But we don't know what your child's going to be like when he or she turns 13. You know, we can't help you with that. So some orders are pretty bad. I will say that. I get the cases and I'm like, oh my goodness, you guys were in a rush. You didn't want to do this anymore. You gave up and you quickly settled. And this order shows. And then we have to figure it out. And I try to encourage the parents to still work together, even in those situations.
Yeah, really hard. Okay, I've seen there's been some questions. I haven't been able to look it up, but I saw a recent one, which is interesting, and I have a comment about it, but they said, why would opposing counsel write court orders for the judge to sign? Like, why would a
Wow.
lawyer write court orders? Is it like a proposed order, like where there's, and I've seen this where a decision's made and then a judge will say to one attorney, can you
Oh,
write
okay.
that up? That's what I mean. I think
That
that's
happens
what you
often.
mean. Yeah.
Oh, because the judges don't have time to write hundreds of orders. So you still have decisions and orders that the court will draft, right? So if you go to a trial, the court will do a decision in order. An attorney doesn't, have the liberty to do that. But if the case settles, the reason why the court will defer to the attorneys is because your attorney has the most advantage in this area, right? You speak to your attorney often, you see your attorney often, I hope you do. So the attorney can kind of, put everything you want in that order. And then it goes back and forth. You don't need to go back to court. There's a couple of exchanges in email to ensure that everything you wanted is in that order. And then the court, there's some other steps I won't bore you with, but the court will assume that once the order is received, everyone's reviewed it, it's stipulated to, and the court will order that because you made a decision to settle your case. So what you want should be in that order. And the judge believes that you read it, you understand it, and you're agreeing to it. So that's why attorneys get to write the orders.
Yeah, I know. Always, like with my original divorce attorney, he was great. He was like, I'm going to write up everything. I don't want opposing counsel to ever write up stuff because I want to make sure that I can check the language, because we've often seen when the other side does it, things get changed, like a word, like the word must turns into may, which is a big problem.
Oh
And the
yeah,
word
those means were
reasonable starts
confused.
appearing a lot, which can be a problem. So,
Oh, good old attorneys. Yes, that happens. It's frustrating.
yeah.
I can agree. agree. Even on my end, it's a bit frustrating. I anticipate that's going to happen depending on the level of contention in a case. Like if we took it to the last step, like literally, like we had to fight to get this agreement, I expect that I need at least a couple of hours to review it. And I'm reviewing it with a red pen. I'm looking for the shall, so the may, and the parenting time, and if then what, to go through that order to ensure that we didn't mix anything up. Sometimes it's done intentionally, right? You know, that's their client. Other times it's inadvertent. Like you don't mean to do it, and it does make a big difference
I
in an order.
know.
And then when you go to enforce that order, right, the judge will say this said may, not
Right.
shall or must.
Right.
So,
I know.
not the
I
same
know.
thing. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
It
I mean, people
happens.
don't realize how they really need to check everything very, very carefully. We tell our clients, even if you have a lawyer, you check it too, because it's your life.
You need to read orders. That I have many like advice to give, but that's one. Read it. I will laugh. Did you read it? Okay, we're gonna do a Zoom. We're gonna go through this together. It's tedious. I don't care. This is your life. Because when you try to go back into court to modify this order, there's no basis to modify the order because you didn't read it before you signed it. That's not a basis.
Right.
That's not a change of circumstance. So I need you to read this. And I get a lot of clients, they'll walk in like, oh man, I had a really bad attorney. I'm like, well, why? Because look at this order. Did you read the order before you signed the order? Like, did you agree
Right.
to this? Oh, but I thought I was agreeing. No, you have to read this. You have
All
to
the
read it. You
time. We
have
put
to
all the
make
time.
changes. Make changes. It's okay. It's our job. We can make changes.
Right. Like you have to be part of your case too. Even with a lawyer, you have to step up.
You you have to step up. I like it's like a line like you don't want to cross like try to be the lawyer because that was a little confusing in the relationship, but you
Yeah.
have to do your part, right? Like you have to show up. I follow up with my clients at my software, like it's like a messaging system because that's like a chief complaint with a lot of clients if they don't hear back from their attorney, and I understand how frustrating that is. So I like to get my answer quickly, right? We don't need an essay for everything. We can get straight to the point, and I think they appreciate that more. But I
Absolutely.
follow up. What's going on? Haven't heard from you in like 2 weeks. This was a pressing issue. Just checking in, make sure you're okay, and we're good. If we're good, here's your deadline. I can put a task in. My client can see it. They can, they have their reminders. They know when they have court. They have the summons. They are well prepared for this experience. I do not expect my clients to be me. That's not what you. Nope. We have our roles. I want you to be you. I need you to focus on raising your kids. Let me take care of the law. And when it's time for us to meet, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, right? We're going to walk through this together. Ask me questions. No questions off the table. I don't care. Just ask me the question. Let me know now, because if I send this in, we're done. Like this order is going through. So they will ask. My clients are good at that. Asia, I don't understand this. What does this mean? Sleep on it. Come back to me tomorrow. We have 48 hours before I hand this in. So if something pops up, you think about it. I know you guys speak with your families and your friends. So something's going to come up. Send me a message and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge because communication is so important. And especially for our people that are dealing with high conflict, there's so much emotion. And one of the top complaints we get is my lawyer is ignoring
Oh,
me.
yeah.
And we often have to explain that lawyers have a lot of cases, not to excuse like being ignored, but that often people who come out of these emotionally abusive relationships are used to a certain power dynamic, which includes the silent treatment. So then when they get an attorney and the attorney doesn't respond, it feels like that same kind of emotional abuse where someone's just ignoring you. And so our clients will be like blaming themselves and being like, my bad client, what did I do wrong? And so it's wonderful to hear an attorney who no one expects, like you said, paragraphs and essays. They just want to know that somebody's on the other end and saw the message and is answering. So that's
Absolutely.
really, really important. I love that you do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Emails get buried, right? Like I have to be realistic, and when you like I onboard my clients, and it sounds crazy, but I do. I need to set your expectation from day one. You are paying me to get a job done, and this is a very unique position that I am in. So day one, this is how we communicate. This is the expectations. If you reach out to me on this day, I always put my out of office. If I'm out of office, I'm not going to leave you guessing. You call my office, you can schedule appointments. They have a link. Like, I give you a link day one. If you need to schedule a Zoom call, a phone call, use the link and put it on my calendar, and
Great.
I'm not going to answer your calls at 10 o'clock because I don't want you to think about this at 10 o'clock at night. Like, unless there's a dire emergency, which there really never is. Love you, parents, but this is not, I promise you. I can't do anything until the morning anyway. And then you're going to stay up all night. No, just know that Asia's going to get back to me. And quick messages, right? So I use a system called Clio. So my clients will send me a message and I'll send a quick message back. Like, I can do it from my phone. Hey, listen, no, that's okay. Let's talk on this day. Here's the link. I like to give my clients that amount of time so they know I'm listening. I don't want to be distracted, like handling emails. You hear the click clack, and I'll tell my clients, I'm taking notes. So if you hear my nails click clacking, I'm taking notes. I'm not ignoring you. So I listen, I hear you, I understand. Like, I pull up your profile, I know your children's names, their date of birth. We go through this already, right? Like, you expect that of me. And so does the court, because it's a little embarrassing when attorneys show up and they know nothing of their clients. Nothing. Not the kids, the age, where the parents were, nothing. And it delays the case. So I invest that time in getting to know my clients and making sure that they understand that they can get in contact with me. You're not going to go 2 weeks without hearing from me. If you do, you should call the police because something has happened to me.
Wow. Asia, that's amazing. I mean, that is great. Okay, another thing that let me just check the time. Okay, we're good. You said that you often tell your clients, watch me.
I
Talk about
said
that.
that.
What should they be mimicking? What do you want them to mimic?
My clients get a kick out of me. I don't want them to cry. My clients cry, but they laugh more than they cry when they speak to me. Because here's the thing. I see so much text messages, emails, and it's just like, no, no, no. You don't have to respond to everything. Oh my goodness, you don't have to. Like, it's okay. So I tell them, like, listen, if you're that upset, like, if you have an iPhone, you can, like, go to the notes, type it out, right? Don't respond directly to the other parent because your first response is probably your worst response. Send an email, do a voice note, watch what I'm doing, right? Like, you see, I read that message. I didn't get upset. It doesn't matter that that's not my kid. It doesn't matter, right? The fact is that I read it and I can read between the lines. This is a parent that's trying to get you to respond. They're upset. If this person was in front of me, they would be foaming at the mouth because they're so upset and they have to tell you how upset they are. No, there's no solution in anything they say. It wasn't as if I'm giving you a problem and then I'm suggesting a solution. That's different. That's effective co-parenting. What happens most of the time is that everyone assumes that they have the right to say whatever they want to say. And that's not how this works. So when my client sends me an email, like, you never believe, well, they never say that, but they will say, hey, see this, Asia. And I'll read the email. And then I will say back to them, like, now, what did we practice? Did you respond to this? No. Are you going to respond? No. Why not? Because there's no substance in this email. There's nothing there. And over time, after a while, it starts to resonate. And they start to realize, you know what, if I respond, one, I'm feeding in and you're just encouraging this monster on the other side. And then two, you just ruined your entire day. Like, who wants to go through their day feeling this way? So most 99% of my clients, they get it. After a while, they just don't. I always say to them, engage with a therapist. I'm really big on that. Some people laugh, like, therapist, what are you trying to say? I'm crazy. I'm like, I don't think you're crazy at all. I think that what you're going through and what you're about to go through is going to be traumatic. And you need a resource other than me, because I can't do that for you because that's not my job. But I think you need a resource, someone to speak to, someone to understand that you're going through a really big change and you have to manage your expectations and your kids at the same time. Like, one doesn't stop and then the other one happens. Like, there's a joke. You can literally, like, be in tears and a kid will walk up to you and say, mommy, can I have a snack? Like, no, like, I'm dying right now, and you have to live through that and, co-parent. So yeah, I have a lot of tools. Like I have so many tools for my clients and people, like on my website. Like I just have so many tools that I've learned throughout the years, especially as a court attorney and working with other lawyers and reading these messages that, is my gift back to society. Like just watch this.
That's That's awesome. Okay, so I mean, clearly, like you and your clients have an intimate relationship, maybe more intimate than a lot of attorneys have with their clients because you take that extra time to learn the details and really pay attention. And I know people appreciate that. So I imagine that it gets to be really friendly sometimes that people start asking your personal opinion. What's the difference between you giving your personal opinion versus legal advice?
Oh, I don't give my personal opinion. I don't think anybody cares about my personal opinion because here's the thing, and I do separate the two. I make sure that if I'm asked a question, it goes like, oh, well, what would you do? And then I'll say, well, the law says no, 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 not what the what's a, I don't care about the law. What would you do in this situation? And then I have to explain when I'm not in this situation, and you don't pay me for my opinion. No, like my clients are great, but we're not friends. And I give my friends my opinion because it's reciprocated, but I'm never going to ask you for your opinion. And it's a boundary that I set, and that's managing your expectation. Because if I give you my opinion and it doesn't go the way that you anticipated in that situation, you're going to be so upset with me because of
Mhm.
the relationship we have, right? Like it's not that type of relationship. So I don't. And I explain that to my clients. And once I kind of say that the first time, it never happens again. I can still relate to you and not give you my opinion. I can
Mhm.
empathize with you rather. And say to you, listen, I'm a mom. I have two boys, and they are the best thing in the world, and they're the craziest human beings all at the same time. But that's not my opinion. That's a fact. So at the same time, I'm a mother. That's a fact. I have two boys. That's a fact. But everything else, my opinion is just, it doesn't help you. How would that help you today? And once I say that to my clients, they get it, and they're not upset. They understand. Like, you know what? You're right. You're right.
Yeah, great. What about this is just like a side comment that I wanted to make sure we ask. What's your opinion on multiple attorney clients? Clients that lawyer shop. Why do people do that?
Uh, they don't get what they want from the first attorney, so they go to the next. And I can't really bash too much because I have a few clients that way, but they end up with me and they settle their cases and they never have another attorney again. But yeah, they don't get to know their lawyers. They just kind of like, they just want to know the price, which lawyers are expensive. I understand. But they just shop around because, oh, this is a big name attorney, so I want that lawyer. They never take the time to get to know the person that they're going to trust to represent them in such a personal matter. Like you have to do that. And 5 months in, they realize, damn, this attorney actually doesn't return my calls, or this attorney is rude, and this attorney is just mean and doesn't care, or this attorney reminds me of my ex. And
Mhm.
once that happens so many times, they end up with 3, 4, 5 attorneys, and it looks really bad. Like it just looks really bad on their end. And when you get knee deep into a case, it's really hard to change attorneys. Like it just begins to spiral. So I would really encourage people to get to know your lawyer. Stop just hiring the first person you meet because, they were the cheapest, or they were the pit bull that you thought you needed. And then you realize 5 years later, damn, if I would have had an attorney who maybe listened to me a little more and just wasn't out to boost their ego, then maybe I would have settled and maybe had maybe $50,000 more in my pocket. They're
Yeah,
expensive. So it happens.
yeah, yeah. Don't I know it? Luckily, not for me. But
Well,
my story's a little bit different. Yeah, pro say so.
I
Okay, so how do you wean clients off you? I mean, I'm sure they get really dependent. My divorce attorney, I loved him. He was like my best friend for a year. I mean, I didn't
it's
want to keep hanging, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna miss talking to him.
I know I have to wean my clients. So here's the thing, right? Tools, skills, right? Once you kind of get those skills and tools, like you're okay to go out on your own. Like it's okay. It's totally fine. I always joke with my clients, as much as I enjoy this relationship, I'm ready to cut you loose. Like today, like, we're good. You don't have to keep paying me. There's nothing left for me to do here. We tapped out on every law we can address. You got most of what you wanted, or you've learned to deal with what you were dealt with, right? That's a huge thing. We don't
Yeah.
pick the other spouse. You guys do it. And then you come to us and you want us to work our magic on this person. If they were crazy then, they're going to be crazy now, and even worse after the fact. So once my clients kind of go through those, get to that place, it's not so bad. I enjoy helping. I love when we're done because it gives me and you finality, and those kids need it. So just they'll check back in, and I'll do like check-ins every 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, just making sure you're good, making sure everything's okay. You remember what we talked about? You're good, right? And sometimes they'll peek back in, and then I'll reset them again, and then they'll go away. And that's good. I'd rather that than you go to a lawyer that's going to say, no, let's take them to the court tomorrow. Like, that's the worst thing that could ever happen to me as an attorney after I finish with a family, is that you left my firm and then you went with the super aggressive firm and they got buried. That kind of makes me feel bad. I don't feel bad about much, but that makes me feel bad for the families I represent.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I'm just looking at the time. All right, we're almost at an hour, which I knew was going to happen.
You
So
did.
why don't you say how people can? And this is just talk number one, because we have a whole other, at least one topic, right, Asia, that we got to talk about.
I know we have a lot. We you're right. I do talk a lot. I gotta.
No, I love it. So how can people find you? What do you offer them besides what you talked about already?
So, I mean, the quickest way, the easiest way, and I prefer, is for people to check out my website. So it is my name. It's ASA Law Office. Go on my website. You have videos, you have blogs, you have a way to chat with me, ask questions, and get to know who I am, my background. That's really important. That's why I put it up there so people know. So before you take that next step of actually speaking to me, you kind of have an idea of what this firm is about. And it really helps. A lot of people will come back to me and say, hey, I couldn't choose between attorneys. I was a little conflicted. And then I went on your website. So I'm like, great, good. That's why it's there, right? There are resources there. I did blogs on child support, custody, divorces, just an understanding so you can understand a little bit of the system. It's not going to be 100% there. So because it's too overwhelming for people to read, but just enough. And that's the easiest way. You can email our practice, admin at ASJ Law Office, to schedule a consultation. You can go to my page and in the bio, it's there as well. Super lawyers, just nominated as a super lawyer this year. My profile is there. I feel like I'm everywhere at this point. It's there.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Like, it's there. You can reach us. You can call us, email. It's there for people to reach us.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Asia. And you will definitely be back if you want to, because I know there's, like you said,
Absolutely.
lots to talk about.
We have lots to talk about.
All right. But this is fantastic. So I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.